All right, so my topic for this presentation today is invasive species. It's a relatively new concept, and it is one of the main focuses for conservation authorities, government organizations, and even private organizations. That has been a big focus because people have seen the big impact of invasive species and want to do something about it. So my topics that I'm going to be focusing on invasive species today is going to be what is an invasive species and why is it a focus? How do species get transported? What impacts do invasive species have? Some control methods of invasive species, and I will then conclude my presentation once we get onto that control method. All right, so let's get going. All right, what is an invasive species? So the definition of an invasive species that is used throughout the world, there are many different types of definition, but this is mostly used throughout the world. So the definition is an organism that is transported through human contact, that establishes a community and spreads from initial location, and that is also harmful to the environment, human health, and the economy. So an invasive species is a species that is brought into an area that it's not supposed to be in. It establishes a community and it spreads from there. It outcompetes the local fauna and flora and is very destructive to the economy, to the environment, and can cause some serious complication in human health. The main focus for invasive species through government organization, private organizations, is how big of a destruction that invasive species is. So what can it do to the environment and what do we know about it and how to control it? The economic loss, obviously, big part in farmers and the trade market. A lot of it destroys a lot of the crops. And people try and restrict it so it doesn't cost as much. Also, the restriction, there's a lot of new protocols being implemented through border control from place to place. So those are the three main focuses for the invasive species throughout the world. All right, how do species get transported? The main and number one way that species get transported is through human contact. Whether it is intentionally or unintentionally, species get transported through trade. So what I mean by that is such as logging, transported from border to border, ships moving from ocean to ocean, and just food produce, that gets transported. In the olden days, ships used to be loaded with soil. Nowadays, it's water, but the ship gets loaded for the ballast to keep it the equilibrium right. And that soil and that water, it brings a lot of pathogens. It brings a lot of organisms into a new place that it shouldn't be done. This is hard to control, but it is one of the main ways in which new species get transported. Recreational purposes too. A lot of people brought in, especially flowers, because they look pretty, or they gave more shade, or they thought it was going to be a good replacement of food for their animals. Soil fixing plants. So it was also brought in for those specific reasons too. So as we can see from the definition, it is still through mostly or through human contact to bring in these species, which has created some serious devastation. So let's move on to the impact of invasive species. The impact of invasive species. So there are many impacts that invasive species cause. One of the biggest impacts that it causes is the cost to the country that they invade. So just in the United States alone, it costs $120 billion annually in order to prevent and control these species from spreading or even coming into the country. Human health is a big one too. A lot of these invasive species people have never seen before or touched, and therefore don't have the immune system to block whatever these new species have brought into the local area. Repair costs, there's been a lot of repair costs, especially on like PVC piping, with, as you can see, the bottom picture, mussels grow inside the piping, which have to be replaced. And that also costs millions of dollars a year to help prevent that, or even to fix certain things. Also, it reshapes soil, so soil and water content, so it changes the chemical properties, which then stops the local fauna and flora from producing and being able to grow in that area. So those are some of the biggest impacts of invasive species. It's very, very threatening and has a very negative impact to its environment throughout the world. So control methods, there's lots of debates on control methods and what should be used, what shouldn't be used, and how it should be used. There's a lot of debate about it, but these are just some of the methods used in order to control. So pesticide, controlled burn, manual labor, preventative measures, management protocols, and biological control. I'm going to just give a quick definition of each and what is used and some pros and cons for it. So pesticide is used to target specific species, but it can have, it has played a part in decreasing the amount of species in the area, but it can also run off into water, causing problems. It can also attack other species that it wasn't intended to if it was close enough to the spray. Controlled burn works. It has worked in the past, but a lot of the time it only works in areas that historically have had fire go through it. Manual labor is good. If there's people out there that want to work, they want to go in, volunteer, it can work very well, but it is very costly and therefore isn't very cost efficient when it comes to big areas or large areas, maybe small areas, but not large areas. Preventative measures, England, USA, and New Zealand have all come up with this clean, drain, dry protocol where, it's public education, public awareness, just to help people such as boaters, fishermen, divers, people that swim in big lakes, to just check their equipment, after they're done, to clean it really well, take off any bits of plant matter or animal matter, just so those animals don't spread to a new environment when they move on to the next location. Management protocols, there are a lot of private institutions, government agencies, and conservation agencies that are implementing their own protocol for specific species, invasive species, which have helped, which take you step by step of what you should do, how you should do it, so those have been a pretty big impact in some of the control methods brought forward. Biological control, this has been a very, this has been a topic that has been debated a lot. It has worked in the past. It still works in today's management controls, but it can also be just as harmful as an invasive species. When a species is brought in to control that specific invasive species, sometimes if it is not controlled, it can spread it to other local fauna and flora, which then attacks and destroys that community too. So it can have a negative effect, but it can have a positive effect as well, just depending on the control, how it's done, the type of research, how long it's been researched. But at the end of the day, we still don't know, what is going to happen out in the real world. So these are just some of the control methods. As I said, one's not better than the other, but it's just how it is implemented and where it is implemented. All right, so to conclude my presentation today, invasive species has been a big focus, and as I said, it's a relatively new concept. There's a lot that has been done. There's been a lot of new breakthroughs, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, a lot of work that needs to go forward, and it needs, help throughout the world from everybody, and everybody can do their bit in just being aware or educated and educate others around them when they can. That concludes my presentation for today, and yep, hope you enjoyed it.